the X-Men, sure. You know mutants, probably a lot of them, yeah. But do you know about all the mutations they have? Maybe not. Devil Dinosaur comes from the prehistoric past of Earth 78411. Most people think of him as just a devil beast from Dinosaur World, and yeah, he is that. But did you know that he is also a mutant? Yep, his mutant gene activated after a traumatic experience with fire. Fortunately, he was saved from those who would harm him by Moon Boy, who befriended the beast. Devil Dinosaur's skin changed to red as a result of his mutation, making him a giant bright red dinosaur. Really stands out. Which honestly kinda makes me think of Clifford the Big Red Dog. I wonder if Clifford is also secretly a mutant with a secret mutation. He has like bright red fur. So strange. Devil Dinosaur was partnered with Moon Boy for quite some time until Moon Boy's death, wherein a new character was introduced to work alongside Devil Dinosaur, a girl with inhuman genes known as Lunella Lafayette, or Moon Girl. We love Lunella. I love DD too. He's also a really great card in Marvel Snap, by the way, especially if you pair him with Moon Girl. It's one of my favorite combos, even to this day. I don't know what's more frightening, the fact that Jean can basically manipulate people's dreams and nightmares through the villain Nightmare, or the threat she gave Nightmare after defeating him in the comics, where she threatened to destroy him at an atomic level. Yikes. Either way you slice it though, when it comes to nightmares that have been created by the god of nightmares himself, Jean is actually the one who would really call the shots between them when they're pitted against one another. I know you'd think Nightmare would come out on top here, but Jean is just that powerful. She could not only use him to take control of others' dreams the world over, but of course could also just take control of those dreams from Nightmare himself, and even match him, or really even beat him in his own realm, which is pretty wild. Chamber is a weird character, but also a beloved character. Like many weirdos that I love to talk about, Chamber is of course also a mutant. His name is Jonathan Starsmore, and while he may actually have the potential to be considered Omega level, that doesn't make his powers any less weird, thank goodness. His power relates to the fact that he's actually made of pure psionic energy. Now while many people know that Jono is psionic, because you know he's always talking telepathically, I don't think many folks actually think about like why his powers manifesting caused him to lose his jaw. I mean, I'm sure the hardcore Jono fans know all about this, but for those of you that are a casual Chamber fan, I'm gonna get into it. When his powers first manifested, they blew a massive hole in his chest and his face. While many people would be immensely harmed or even killed by such an occurrence, Chamber was not. As a result, Jono no longer needs to breathe, eat, or drink, and his blood does not even course through his veins. It doesn't need to do that to keep him alive. Yeah, as such he is typically seen with a scarf or some other clothing covering the lower half of his face, and he communicates telepathically, as you know, he can no longer talk since he has no jaw. Also he's made of psionic energy, so he's a very powerful psionic mutant. By far one of the strangest, yet kinda in a weird way most OP characters of all time from Marvel has to be Dupe. Okay, so he's at the very least the most strange. And now we have his evil counterpart, Pood in Excellent, who might somehow be weirder. Oh boy. Dupe is pretty powerful because he has some fourth wall shattering level of awareness, and he's able to actually move between panels in comics, existing not just within the panels of the page, but also moving into the borders and margins as well, able to exist outside of the panels that we're used to reading, which I think is pretty wild. I mean, not many other characters can do that, never mind mutants. Granted, we don't really know what Dupe is, or you know, if he's really a mutant, but he definitely hangs out with the X-Men a lot, and I feel like he's so weird, I just would believe he is a mutant in some way in his origin. Though at this point in time, there's no definitive origin for the character yet, just to be fully transparent here. He's also demonstrated some powerful magical abilities too, as well as super strength, speed, durability, and even the power to resurrect. Without the help of the Five no less, he can just do that by himself, so he's got a lot of powers that I feel like not a lot of people think about. The Love Eyes is one of my favorites. Never forget Madelyne Pryor's awesome telekinetic lasso. What an awesome and totally bizarre weapon for a goblin queen to wield. Maybe we can call it a telekinetic whip instead. That seems more fitting based on Maddie's kinda generally crazy and definitely vicious and vengeful disposition. Madelyne Pryor as the Goblin Queen used this lasso to wrangle, get this, Jean Grey. That's right, her lasso was powerful enough to wrangle Jean, who herself is considered, now at least, an Omega level mutant in both psionic areas of power. What's more, Maddie's psionic whip was so powerful, it also like basically just rendered Jean powerless when they were having their fight. So yeah, I feel like if you can use any kind of lasso to render Jean Grey powerless, that's impressive. Why doesn't she use it more often? She should bring it back. I want to see the lasso again. Let's bring it back. Training with Doctor Strange made magic even more powerful. She already has all the knowledge imparted to her by Alternate Storm and of course Belasco and all his magical texts, so adding in the teaching of Doctor Strange has made her an insane level of powerful when it comes to her magical abilities. At one point she used her knowledge to turn herself and a group of other supers, including mutants and some Guardians of the Galaxy members, invisible. Yeah. And a gambit to buy time when her teleportation powers just couldn't cut it. It's not really like a mutant power, but it is a power that a mutant has. So, see what I did there? There's something about people being in near-death experiences that seemingly allow them to evolve in some way and survive. Masque is another one of the mutants that has experienced that. Masque was inherently more of a villain in the comics and also a Morlock. However, being a Morlock wasn't what made him evil. What made him evil was kind of his outlook on life. His mutant powers allowed him to alter the appearance of others, basically turning him into one of the world's most powerful plastic surgeons of all time. But at the same time, Masque was considered himself to be hideous, hence why he hid in the underground tunnels of New York with the Morlocks and, was a Morlock, because that's kind of their whole thing. And his powers did not work on his own physical appearance, tragically. That is until he was nearly killed by Shatterstar. Now, to survive, he had to actually move his organs around, so this gave him the power to manipulate his appearance. He leveled up. He gained what we would call a secondary mutation. For a while, he also used his powers to appear as Marilyn Monroe while leading the Morlocks. Although now Masque has seemingly gotten over his obsession with beauty and usually chooses to just appear as he is. Either that or people forgot that this power existed, but I'm gonna go with the route of, Masque just loves himself now, because I like that story for him. Moira was usually known as more of an ally to the X-Men for many years, and none of us would have ever suspected that she had powers at all. She has been known as a mutant ally throughout many comics, often Charles Xavier's ill-fated lover, and if you don't see her as being a major player in the comics, let me just remind you that she was the one who figured out how to cure the legacy virus, and I honestly think that elevated her even to a superhero status if we're talking about it. We found out Moira MacTaggert was a mutant recently in modern comics during the House of X series. We learned that she had done more than just die in the comics. We learned that her powers allowed her to actually be reborn, but not in a traditional sense of superpowers. This isn't a healing factor or a resurrection. Her powers actually allow her to relive her life again. Yeah, so it's kind of like a reincarnation. From birth to death, starting in the womb. So she's living the same years, but she can use her actions to alter history, making her an odd but surprisingly powerful mutant. But not everyone knows about Moira MacTaggert and her powers, so there you go. This is less of a power, this next one, and more of just a really interesting fact about a power, but I didn't know this myself initially and I was surprised by it somewhat, so I figured I would just share it with you and count it as a point on this list. Now we all know that Jean is one of the preferred hosts, if not I would say the preferred host for the Phoenix Force, but did you know that the all-powerful cosmic entity was actually holding Jean back? Yeah, apparently that's right. Jean has stated before that she actually became aware after the Phoenix Force left her that it was actually causing her to hold back her abilities for fear of the Phoenix taking a hold of her and possessing her. So while many like to say that Jean has only ever been extremely powerful when she's merged with the Phoenix, like that's Jean at her most powerful, it turns out that it's probably just the opposite, because she literally fought to hold herself back, which honestly to me makes some sense. Saying Jean isn't actually powerful and that it's like all the Phoenix has always just felt like kind of a cop-out to me, considering that it's her own power and empathy that the Phoenix was seemingly attracted to in the first place. Like that's why she's the ideal host, so to me that makes sense. But that also means some crazy stuff. That means like Jean could destroy maybe the multiverse herself, you know what I mean? Because Phoenix can destroy planets, so. I always forget about Kid Omega's secondary mutation because it very rarely comes up in the comics, and I feel like it's also therefore a power that a lot of people are gonna forget. Now I usually probably forget about it because Quentin Quire no longer really finds it interesting. At least, that's the canon reason that we're given for why we really never see it anymore. I personally think it sounds super interesting and I'm surprised that he's bored of it. However, this is Quentin, so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised. Quentin Quire is a bit of an oddball. He's often unimpressed as well by some of the coolest stuff. He's very like, ugh, whatever, I'm over it. Or at least, he presents himself this way often. Kid Omega's power that I'm about to talk about here is that he has a non-corporeal form, which when accessed also speeds up his consciousness and actually allows him as a telepath to reach out and connect with all sentient beings. Yeah, basically like all of Earth he could just connect with. He can think at the speed of light while in this form, but then again, even when Quire isn't in it, he's known for being one of the fastest thinkers and one of the smartest psionics on the planet, so I think we kept that part, but we forgot about the non-corporeal stuff.
Number 10. Nature manipulation. This one's a little fun, but not too shocking when it comes to magical beings. Nature manipulation, that's right. If you're not too happy with your garden or your lawn situation, Wanda could come over and just fix it all up for you easy peas. She can manipulate and control nature at her will. She even says all things organic bow to my will, whether they be fire, air, or water. In giant-sized Avengers issue 4, we see her literally attack Vision with a giant boulder. And then she even uses hot magma as a weapon at one point as well. You can't bring guns to a boulder fight. That's just how it works with these Avengers. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video because it really does go a long way for us. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's keep going with this list. Number 9, power augmentation. Sometimes you're playing a sport and maybe your buddy starts gassing out and you just wish that you could give them some of your energy just to keep going. Well, if you're a Wanda Maximoff, that would be easy breezy. That would be doable, no problem. That's right, Wanda can enhance, increase, and super boost the superpowers of others. They get way stronger than they're used to. I mean, once she even used this on Pietro Quicksilver and he was able to run at the speed of light. You can find this in Avengers issue 690. She also lent a hand to Wonder Man as she powered him up so much he was able to take out Morgan Le Fay, who at the time had the Twilight Sword, and the Norn Stones. And you can find this in Avengers Volume 3, issue 3. So yeah, power augmentation. She can boost you up when you're feeling tired in the morning. Who needs coffee? She'll just be like, hey, now you can fly. Enjoy. Number 8, teleportation. Whenever my friends and I talk about what powers we wish we had, because you know, that's a normal conversation to have in your mid-20s as an adult, I always say teleportation. Wanda has the ability to send herself or others any place she wants. Could be a super far distance, bam, cancel your Uber, I gotcha. We see her use this power in Avengers vs. X-Men issue 6. She also showcases this ability in Avengers The Children's Crusade issue 7. So when Wanda decides that the fight should cool down, she just whisks everybody away over to Castle Doom. Number 7, Witch Sight. Being the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff has the ability of Witch Sight. And I think we're gonna start seeing this more now with WandaVision creeping up to that finale, because at the end of episode 8, we see Agatha Harkness in full-on witch form. I mean, she's floating, she's got Billy and Tommy by the neck, and she looks pretty good too. As far as old witches go, I'm like, you seem pretty good. It was an epic way to lead us into the finale. A lot of secrets are coming out, and Wanda in the comics uses her witch sight to see things, of course, beyond a normal human's capabilities. In Scarlet Witch Volume 2, Issue 2, she was able to detect this powerful invisible minotaur. Also, an invisible minotaur sounds way scarier than Thanos. I don't know, that sounds terrifying. She also uses this witch sight in the next issue to see Agatha Harkness's spirit. Now, she wasn't able to see this during the sitcom parts, so either Agatha revealed herself or she allowed Wanda to tap in and see her true Salem witch look. Either way, she has a great look and Wanda can see it, so something's cooking. Number 6, portals. One of the best moments in the MCU easily is when Doctor Strange portals all of our heroes back to the final battle. It's amazing. The music, the colors, and goosebumps, that's how you do it. Now, believe it or not, Wanda too can create these portals, and at one point in issue 8 of Scarlet Witch Volume 2, she uses this ability to create 2 portals at the same time, which is super cool. If you played the game Portal, you know exactly where I'm going with this one. She can also summon help by transporting somebody to her location. Similar to Brother Voodoo, she once summoned minions of Sidorak to magically fix up the Avengers mansion. That's gotta be convenient. I mean, my room's messy right now. I could really use some minions of Sidorak to come and do some laundry. Number 5, spells and phrases. When Wanda says those 3 words, no more mutants, the world just flipped. But Wanda has a vast array of spells she can use, and I'm really hoping we start to see this side of her now that Agatha has dragged her into the hashtag witchlife. She also has this ability to purify objects as well. For instance, in Scarlet Witch issue 10, she purified a lake with a spell and then tossed a demon in, freeing the 2 souls that it was possessing. And if you need to sneak around town at all, maybe a sneak attack on a supervillain perhaps, she can use a spell to make objects or people invisible. No cloak of invisibility needed. Number 4, reality warping. Wanda is no stranger to warping reality, especially in WandaVision. I mean, of all things. It's the main theme. It's super impressive when she uses this reality warping power when she's fighting as well, not just to make herself in a sitcom. It's kind of like Thanos using the stones to make Doctor Strange's spells turn into butterflies, or when he literally pulls reality closer to him. It's insane, but basically Scarlet Witch shows this technique when she battles Hope Summers in Avengers vs. X-Men issue 6. And Loki, being the god of mischief, would have had a fun time going against Wanda as well, because she too can create these massive illusions. She actually once tricked the Emerald Warlock to make him believe that he had actually defeated her in a battle. Scarlet Witch then reveals herself without a single scratch on her face. Number 3, time control. Doctor Strange wasn't the only player with time control. I mean, my hopes are that by the end of this show, she unlocks all these crazy Scarlet Witch abilities and everything I've listed just becomes part of her power roster. Just full-on Scarlet Witch mode. And then she becomes the new Time Master after the next Doctor Strange. Hopefully, it's a stretch, but let me explain. I think this whole show, and well, the MCU up until now, is basically just her getting beat down, and now she's just gonna start rising up, this time in full control. But yeah, she controls time in the comics, specifically in Uncanny Avengers issue 4. She slows time down, and her powers are so strong that she can stop or freeze time. She does so in Star issue 3, where she literally freezes time so Ripley Ryan doesn't take out Jessica Jones. She also makes the Avengers have a little timeout during Captain America and the Falcon issue 6. If only she could, speed up time so we can see what happens in the finale this week, that would be great. Number 2, Chaos Magic. The end of episode 8 of WandaVision had fans pretty jazzed. See, Agatha Harkness refers to Wanda finally as the Scarlet Witch, but she also references chaos magic. So what is this chaos magic? Well, in the comics, Wanda got her powers through the old god of chaos, Chthon. This god came to her the day she was born, not really a blessing, but rather it was done so that this chaos god could add to Wanda's powers and then use her as a vessel down the road one day when she's fully grown. We see this all take place in Avengers issue 186, but luckily the Avengers stopped this from happening in the next issue. So perhaps for the MCU telling of the story, maybe Agatha is just going to take the place of the chaos god and maybe try and feed on her magic to do more herself. But with Vision coming back and the kids being Wiccan in speed, I don't think she'll need the Avengers here. I think she'll just need her happy family to take out all the evil. And finally, number 1, magical awareness. Wanda is loaded with many amazing abilities. As we just heard, a handful of them. We could do 2, maybe 3 videos on her abilities alone. But one of the coolest, in my opinion, is her magical awareness. It's like a feeling. It's kind of like spider sense, but for magicians. So Wanda has the ability to be aware of pretty much anything that affects her or her surroundings. She can also detect auras. Super witchy. And we see this as well in issue 1 of Scarlet Witch, when Wanda senses something out in the city that isn't right. And then when Agatha responds with, well, yeah, it's New York City, things aren't right all the time, Wanda says, no, it's witchcraft. She can feel it. She can determine if you're good or evil, and she can also track magic. In The Order, issue 5, she's able to tell where Doctor Strange last used his magic. And then in Avengers issue 152, she could also determine the origin of a stone by using this magical awareness.
Number 10, thermokinesis. Considering his name is Iceman, everyone knows that Bobby Drake has cryokinesis, aka the ability to generate, manipulate, and fully control ice and snow. But this goes hand in hand with his thermokinesis as well. This is the ability to lower both his external and internal body temperature, which projects intense coldness from his body. Like the rest of us humies, the nerve centers for regulating Iceman's body temperature are found in the part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Unlike us though, Iceman can mentally override his hypothalamus to allow his body temperature to be lowered. This ability converts the latent thermal energies in and around his body into an unknown form of energy that is then dissipated. Now this would potentially hurt a human, but a related mutation has also rendered his body tissues unaffected by sub-zero temperatures, thankfully and luckily. Iceman can consciously immediately lower his body temperature from its normal 98 degrees Fahrenheit to absolute zero and lower within the span of a few tenths of a second. Number 9, icy cover. As Iceman's body temperature drastically falls, the surrounding moisture in the air that is in contact with him also begins to lower in temperature. In a similar but much more extreme way that condensed moisture forms frost, the moisture surrounding Iceman forms an icy covering which encompasses his entire body and obscures his face. When Iceman first began doing this and appeared in the early X-Men comics, this ability essentially made our mutant look like a snowman. He was covered head to toe in snow. But as Bobby learned to increase the severity of his coldness, the consistency of this frozen moisture became crystalline ice. This ice constantly cracks with any movement of his body and immediately reforms, allowing Bobby to move, but with a cracking striking ice sound every time. Through practice, Iceman has learned to control the intensity of his coldness, and he can selectively lower the temperature of isolated parts of his body to cause this icy shielding in specific areas. Number 8. Organic ice form. But Bobby doesn't only cover himself in ice, he can also completely become ice. Hilariously and kind of redundantly, it's called organic ice. I don't even know if that makes sense. Though the appearance can be similar to when he covers himself in ice, in this form, Iceman is now virtually indestructible, or rather, he is basically unkillable, able to reform himself from being shattered or evaporated, and he is completely translucent in his ice form as well. He has even been incinerated while in human form and was able to rebuild himself in ice. In his ice form, he is able to use the moisture in the air to form spikes, shields, and attach other extra appendages to his body, which he can use in combat. Number 7. Ice golems. Unsurprisingly, Iceman has the ability to create structures out of ice. The level of detail is determined by his own imagination, as his mastery over his powers has reached the atomic level. For most of his superhero career, Iceman was not able to make the ice sculptures move of their own accord, but this all changed during the Battle of the Atom event in 2013, when Iceman showed off a new extension of his abilities. It was revealed that Iceman can create basic ice structures that possess a rudimentary intelligence. One of these sculptures actually rebelled against Iceman and joined the Brotherhood, which is just freaking weird. It also makes no sense, but this is a comic, so we just go with it. These constructs have been seeming ice clones of Iceman himself, or they have also been big, hulking behemoths and ice monsters. Some other constructs Bobby has created have been turning raindrops into fists that he used against the Iron Fist, a crystal-like ice focuser able to focus the laser beams of Cyclops, and even an entire ice city with intricate details. Number 6. Ice Zord. Bouncing off those semi-sentient constructs to something a bit more awesome that I think deserves its own whole point. In Wolverine and the X-Men issue 33 to 34, Iceman is part of a group of mutant faculty at Wolverine's Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, sent to take on the Hellfire Academy and Cade Kilgore. Cade has been utilizing a handful of sentient living volcano behemoths to defend his academy, and while the heroes have a sentient living island fighting on their side, they only have one. So, what does Iceman do? Iceman creates an absolutely massive ice behemoth that looks like Voltron or like a Power Ranger Zord, with an absolutely massive ice sword, and he takes it into battle, slicing the behemoths apart and yelling "Glacier Fist" as he commands the ice Voltron from inside an ice cockpit. It's absolutely amazing and completely bonkers. Number 5. Hydrokinesis. Alright, so we know Iceman can control ice. But there was a time when Emma Frost mentally controlled Bobby, and she utilized his powers in ways that he had never even imagined. It turns out that since Iceman can control ice, which is just frozen water, then it actually makes total sense that he also has hydrokinesis, or the ability to manipulate water. And since he is a potential Omega level mutant, he can do it at a molecular level. We know that he can use surrounding moisture to augment himself, but when Emma was controlling him, she used his power to travel within large bodies of water very quickly by breaking down to his base levels in the water and then reforming at his destination. Iceman has demonstrated the ability to be transformed into nothing more than water or water vapor, yet remain conscious and retain the use of his powers. Essentially, wherever there is any moisture of any kind, Iceman is a threat. Number 4. Cryokinetic perception / cryo travel. Okay, so I'm going to wrap these two up into one, even though they aren't really technically fully the same, although they kind of are at the same time. For starters, after Bobby, whose powers were significantly amplified and who was kind of a little bonkers at the time, managed to freeze the earth in ice and snow, he gained the ability to spread his actual consciousness through the ice and through the snow to allow him to perceive literally all events occurring within it. He could monitor the entire earth through the ice and snow, and it made him practically a god. With his ability to transform organic matter, such as the human body, to organic ice and back again, it is possible for him to project his consciousness through moisture molecules and reform his body at the destination, like he did when Emma Frost controlled him, and he did indeed do this in this story as well, traveling through the ice and snow and appearing wherever he wanted. Number 3. Cellular replacement. We already talked about, a few times, Iceman's hydrokinesis and how he has literally turned himself into and traveled through the molecules of water. Well, Bobby also eventually discovered that he was able to use his control over moisture to draw ambient moisture into himself and thus use that moisture to replace his own body's cells. Quote, a body swap done one piece, one cell at a time. This upgrade to his already insane abilities allowed Bobby to avoid receiving a fatal dose of neurotoxin by letting the poisoned molecules of his body dissipate into vapor and then be replaced by untainted water molecules from his surroundings. Iceman can replace his own cells with new ones, healing and purging himself by remaking his own body. As long as there's moisture, Iceman cannot be stopped. It's just a fact. Number 2. Thermovision. With such a fine-tuned control over cold and temperature like what Iceman has, it would make sense that he would be able to maybe sense or feel heat. But it turns out he can literally see it. Because of the absence of heat around himself when his temperature is dropped, Bobby can literally see beings simply based on the heat signatures they give off. This happened most famously when the X-Men were facing against Onslaught. At the time, Onslaught managed to mess the X-Men's perception of things and became invisible. Luckily, the X-Men had Bobby. He scanned the entire room, and thanks to the heat that Onslaught's body was naturally giving off, Bobby saw Onslaught the minute he entered the room, using his ice blasts to attack him and break his psionic shielding, allowing the other X-Men to see him too. And finally, in at number 1, he can stop the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut is not just strong. The Juggernaut is fueled by magic, powered by a massively powerful extra-dimensional being called Sidorak. Through Sidorak, Juggernaut was granted the ability to gain unstoppable momentum with each step, to the point that not even the hammer of Thor can stop him in his tracks. Who cares about ancient magical Uru metal hammers though, when you have the power of ice? Iceman managed to completely stop the Juggernaut in his tracks during one of the X-Men's many encounters with Cain Marko. Now it is worth noting that Juggernaut was not in his top form at the time, but regardless, stopping the Juggernaut dead in his tracks using massive amounts of ice to immobilize him is incredibly impressive. But it wasn't the only way Bobby has stopped the guy, and this one, I have to warn you, is ridiculous even for a comic book. During another battle with the Juggernaut, Iceman got creative with his powers. Iceman used his powers to, and I quote, freeze the speed of light around him. Freeze the speed of light around Juggernaut. Iceman is so powerful he temporarily rewrote the laws of physics themselves to achieve his victory. It's also worth noting that in this same fight, he created wings made out of ice that actually allowed him to fly, which I don't think is possible. Personally though, if it was me, and I'm just gonna put in my own little opinion here, I would just make like a loop of ice so the Juggernaut slips and goes around and around and around and around, gaining speed and momentum, and then I would give it like a little offshoot ramp and just send him careening into space, like unable to stop. He would just be gone. What are you gonna do? Nothing. You can't stop.
Number 10. Control over life and death. Obviously, as the Phoenix or even the Dark Phoenix, Jean has been shown to have this ability. But did you know that this power actually first manifested when Jean's powers did, really going on to showcase the potential of her future abilities. When Jean's best friend Annie died when she was little after being tragically hit by a car, the traumatic experience caused Jean's powers to manifest. She reached out and created a psychic link between her and her friend, and despite being very new to these abilities, Jean was actually able to hold her friend's mind there, keeping her alive and trying to protect her from the encroaching darkness. Unfortunately, she was not strong or skilled enough just yet to do so for more than a few moments, and ultimately could not bring her friend back to life as Annie's injuries were simply too great. Eventually, Annie's mind disappeared, dying while their minds were linked, leaving Jean alone in the darkness. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when I get to talk about Jean Grey, I know I do, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. And if you are, thank you. Number 9. A God's Mind. Sure, the progenitor progenitor at this point is not your standard celestial. It was actually created by the Eternals and the Avengers, chiefly with major help from the mutant Mr. Sinister and the main Avenger Tony Stark. The progenitor was revived and reprogrammed, given new morals that were dictated by Earth's heroes in the hopes that it would help the Eternals in ending the war between Druig, who was then ruler of the Eternals, Eternal Prime if you will, and the mutants, who he had classified as deviants. However, this plan backfired when the Celestial decided to blame the inhabitants of Earth for the state of the planet, and put the entire populace basically on trial. In an attempt to save the world, Jean and a covert team infiltrated the progenitor, moving around inside it in the hopes of reaching its kill switch, so they could basically turn it off. Without Jean though, they never would have even made it very far. At the end, Jean was also crucial to the team's efforts, holding psychic damage that would have easily crushed them at bay, and breaking into the Celestial's mind. No small feat considering Celestials are giant cosmic gods. And yes, I know this one was one that was still made by the people of Earth sort of, but still, the wiring's all still there, you know what I mean? Number 8. Telepathy. While this one might seem obvious to most readers in the present day, it's important to note that Jean's powerful telepathic skills were actually for many years a secret to both readers and actually to Jean herself. Initially, when we're introduced to Jean in X-Men issue number 1, it is her telekinetic abilities that are put on display. She picks up a book and flips through it. And I gotta admit, initially Jean's powers actually seem like the best of the bunch, with the most potential in terms of power levels. And yes, I know this is not how Jean's powers would be depicted, but I'm just saying in that first issue when I was introduced to Jean, I thought she was super cool. However, this feeling of her being super powerful that I had would be very short-lived, as Jean would be shown to struggle with even lifting her own weight telekinetically. In fact, at one point, I think it's even mentioned that Jean's own physical weight is her max limit for what she can lift with her mind. Apparently, what one can lift with one's own body is weirdly relevant, or used to be anyways, when it came to what a superhero could lift with their mind. Jean's like, I can't lift that much. They were like, you can't lift that much with your mind either, girl. Evidently, we didn't want to let Jean be too powerful. Otherwise, who would act as the team's damsel in distress? Which was the role Jean quickly became relegated to filling, honestly. However, later on, not only would her telekinetic powers become stronger as a result of both training and her bond to the Phoenix Force, but we'd also learn that this wasn't even Jean's major ability. No. As a psionic, Jean actually became known for being more powerful as a telepath, an ability that was hidden away from her for most of her life in an attempt to protect her from her own inexperience and her power's instability, thanks to mental blocks that were put in place by, you guessed it, Charles Xavier, who first met Jean when she was very young and her powers had just begun to manifest. Charles, of course, would eventually remove these blocks later in Jean's life when he felt that Jean was better equipped to handle these extraordinarily powerful abilities. And maybe when he was like, you know what, I should probably, the cat's out of the bag, I gotta let people know Jean's actually super OP. I think he didn't want Jean to harsh his mellow, to be honest. Number 7. Empathy. One of the most overlooked powers that I think Jean and some others possess is the power of empathy. Empathy basically means that you feel what others feel. When someone says to you, I empathize, it's different than saying I sympathize, because they aren't just, imagining what you're going through and trying to understand it. They actually feel what you feel, likely having shared an experience with you or an emotional response at the very least. In comic book terms, being empathic, it doesn't usually just mean feeling what others feel. It can also mean controlling others' emotions, or using the emotions of people around you to make other people feel differently. A power that Jean has demonstrated before, like when she used her empathic skills to defeat Xavier's evil twin, Cassandra Nova. And she's actually used this ability to defeat a lot of people, I'm gonna be honest. But I don't think people think about the empathy, and it's pretty crazy, man. Number 6. Finding the weakness. I mean, as a telepath, of course Jean can scan your mind and take with her any information that she finds. And this, of course, includes, you guessed it, any weaknesses that you have. Especially if you fall into the trap of thinking about said weaknesses while Jean is in your mind. If you have a nut allergy, watch out if Jean Grey's around you if you're fighting her. But even if you don't think about your weaknesses, Jean could probably easily find this out. That is exactly what she managed to do, although it wasn't quite as easy to know when she got inside his head. And you'd think telepathically he'd be pretty gifted himself, being the creator and leader of a hive mind as the Clintar and symbiote King in Black. But even Null could not resist Jean's power. Although she did have to try really hard, admittedly. Number 5. Overcoming mental blocks. This is most likely a case of writers just forgetting the focus of Jean's psionic powers in the earlier days, but it happened in continuity. So that also means we can kind of count their possible mistake as actually a major strength for Jean. And if another writer wanted to reflect back on this moment, they could easily use it to bolster Jean's power levels, even back in the day when she was notably written to be a lot weaker. Remember how I said that Professor X created mental blocks for Jean when it came to her telepathy, which he later removed when he felt she was ready to handle her own off-the-charts power levels? Well, apparently early on, Jean did still display some telepathic abilities, even somehow with those blocks supposedly in place. She read Professor X's mind in an issue of Captain America, sensing that something was wrong by reading his thoughts. She literally says like she read his mind, basically. If this is true and it's considered canon, it would mean that Jean temporarily pushed through Xavier's mental blocks to read his mind, which, gotta be honest, that's like on a whole other level of power, I think. So if we want to count it as canon, there you go. Number 4. Interstellar travel. When it comes to those with psionic abilities, we don't typically think of them as cosmic heroes who can fly through space and fight aliens, but guess what? Jean can. While bonded with the Phoenix Force, Jean has been shown to be capable of interstellar travel, propelling herself through space. The vacuum of space, she can just fly right through it and she feels fine, doesn't even need a spacesuit. She has also been shown to be able to fly and make it appear as though others are flying on Earth by using her telekinesis, but that one you probably already knew about. The interstellar travel though, that might have caught you unawares. Number 3. Communicating undetected. Another great power as a telepath that Jean manages to have is keeping her telepathic conversations secret, which, when there's a lot of other telepaths around you, is not easy. Basically, there are many other powerful telepaths around you who could be trying to pry and eavesdrop on you, and a lot of them are also powerful. But Jean has managed to keep more than a few mental conversations a secret, even from some of the other most powerful telepaths in the universe, including Null, the god of symbiotes. While Null himself was in the middle of a telepathic conversation with Dylan, Jean actually managed to use her powers to slip into said conversation completely unnoticed, with Null not even aware that Jean was also talking to Dylan telepathically at the same time, and that Dylan wasn't really listening to him so much as he was listening to Jean. Honestly kinda rude, but also, yeah, Jean's trying to tell Dylan how to save the day, so fair enough. Number 2. Control over nightmares. I don't know what's more frightening, the fact that Jean can basically manipulate people's dreams and nightmares through the villain Nightmare, or the threat she gave Nightmare after defeating him, where she basically said if she had to deal with him again, she was gonna destroy him at an atomic level. She's like, look, I don't like to end people's lives, but if you mess with me again, I will destroy you at an atomic level. Either way you slice it though, when it comes to nightmares that have been created by the god of nightmares himself, Nightmare, Jean is the one who would really call the shots between them when they're pitted against one another. I've seen them run into each other a few times, and it does not end well for Nightmare. Number 1. The Phoenix Force. This is less of a power and more of a really interesting fact about a power. So for those of you that heard me say that title and go, well, obviously we know that, Amanda. Yes, yeah, I know. But I actually didn't know this fact myself initially, and I was surprised by it somewhat, so I figured I'd share it with you. We all know that Jean is one of the preferred hosts, if not, I would say, the preferred host for the Phoenix Force. But did you know that the all-powerful cosmic entity was actually holding Jean back? That's right. Jean has stated before that she actually became aware after the Phoenix Force left her that it was causing her to hold back her abilities and her power for fear of the Phoenix taking hold over her, because then she wouldn't have control. So while many like to say that Jean has only ever been extremely powerful when she's merged with the Phoenix, it turns out it's probably just the opposite. So yeah, Jean destroying like a whole world, apparently that's Jean holding back. Which honestly, to me, I gotta say, that all kind of makes sense. Saying Jean isn't actually powerful and that it's all the Phoenix has always felt like a cop-out to me, considering it's her own power and her own empathy that the Phoenix was seemingly attracted to in the first place. So you would think that would mean that she's at least on the same power level as the Phoenix, if not more powerful, and that's why it was like, yeah, I want you as the host, cause you got the power. Number 10. Resurrection. While not always influenced by Madelyne and her own abilities, Maddie not only has a powerful healing factor, but she seems to have found herself in a constant cycle of resurrection. Meaning that even when she seems to be dead and gone and we haven't seen her for honestly years, she's the kind of villain, and honestly not even just a villain now, also just as a character, that always comes back. Madelyne has been defeated multiple times and has returned since her initial introduction and defeat in Inferno more than 5 times, over the course of her 40-year history. Now that is quite a lot of returns, and also quite a lot of disappearances, honestly. One thing is for sure, if Maddie is killed or seemingly permanently defeated or disposed of in some way, she always comes back. Eventually anyways. Might take a few years, but she'll be back. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that subscribe button. Number 9. Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force is literally a part of Madelyne Pryor. No, seriously, she wouldn't exist without it. While some might argue that Madelyne Pryor is a weaker version of Jean Grey, those folks likely don't understand her origin. At least her retcon origin. Not the origin Chris Claremont originally intended for her, but the one we got. Jean has been connected to the Phoenix Force before, being its host, but Maddie is literally made from a piece of the Phoenix, with a piece of it residing inside her. So she doesn't need to be a host of the Force to tap into its raw power and energy. The Phoenix Force is one of the most powerful forces in all of the known universe, and potentially even the multiverse over at Marvel, considering it has the ability to literally rewrite reality. Because Maddie was literally made from it, this also means its potential lives inside her as well. Maddie did not know her origin and initially lived appearing as a normal human. It wasn't until she learned the truth of her origin, her retconned origin admittedly, that she began to be able to tap into her true mutant and even cosmic power. Number 8. Psychic Link. Madelyne Pryor has the ability to link her mind to another being. We see her doing this during the initial Inferno event, and honestly, it's pretty scary. It is in doing this that she almost completely destroys and defeats Jean Grey during their fight against one another. I can't even imagine having my mind psychically linked to someone, especially not someone who looks identical to me and seemingly kinda stole my life. I mean, whichever way you want to look at that, either from Jean's perspective or Maddie's perspective, they could definitely both share that perspective when looking at the other of someone stealing someone's life. Initially, the two women shared a psychic link, one that Madelyne later exploits during Inferno in an attempt to kill Jean, although of course through harming herself. Madelyne's plan at that point is to basically take her own life, thereby destroying Jean through their link, thereby taking Jean down along with her. If I'm going down, you're coming with me, and I'll go down if it means I can defeat you. Number 7. Lives on in Jean. I think one of the most wild powers that Maddie has in the comics that we tend to overlook is her influence over Jean. Now, following the events of Inferno, Madelyne's personality and memories basically lived on in Jean Grey. Jean was forced to take both Maddie's psyche and the Phoenix Force within herself in order to survive Maddie's psychic attack on her soul. This actually gives Madelyne some power through Jean though. It's actually through Madelyne's influence that Jean and the X-Men decided to fatally attack Mr. Sinister, seemingly destroying him permanently after Inferno. Although of course in reality he would return, because that's comics for you. Normally such use of lethal force would not be the X-Men or Jean's way, but it was Maddie's influence that actually prompted them to act as such. While it's not a power that Maddie can easily control or flex necessarily, it's still pretty impressive to think that technically Sinister initially being permanently defeated was in good part because of Maddie's influence on and manipulation of the hero's psyches. Number 6. Take your memories. At one point, Madelyne Pryor attempts to take all of Jean's memories, and even threatens to do so. During the Dark Web event, she actually worked with Chasm, the current evil persona of Ben Reilly, who had worked on a device that would forcefully take someone's memories from them. Ben was doing this to basically get the memories that he lost back during the Beyond event, aiming to get them back from Peter Parker's Spider-Man, since Ben's early memories were initially copied from Peter's mind when Ben was created. Without them, there was a big hole in his mind and his personality, a chasm, if you will, huh? Get it? Teaming up with Ben, Maddie sought to retrieve memories of raising her baby, who would eventually grow up through time to become Cable, from Jean. She felt that she was basically robbed of these memories after she was defeated in the initial Inferno event, with Jean taking over her role as baby Cable's mom. However, in the end, Maddie didn't have to forcibly take Jean's memories at all, as instead Jean chose to willingly share them with Madelyne, having never wanted to fight her in the first place. However, it was still a power that Madelyne has, and she could have used it, but she didn't. Number 5. Control over demons. Madelyne Pryor isn't just known as Madelyne Pryor. In the comics, she also has another name, the Goblin Queen. In fact, when I was recently cosplaying Maddie at SDCC this year, most people referred to me by that name. They call me the Goblin Queen. Most people knew me either as Jean's evil clone or just the Goblin Queen. Maddie earned this name after she made a pact with the demon of Limbo, thereby becoming their queen. Although she may have felt pretty in her power at that time, in reality she was still kinda just being manipulated by them somewhat. Still, Maddie did hold some sway over the goblins and demons of Limbo, considering that she was their ally and their partner. And you know, Goblin Queen. But like I said, how much power did she have at that time? I don't think she had a ton, really. Number 4. Her secret name. The really wild thing with Madelyne Pryor that still amazes me is her secret name. I'm not talking about her title as the Black Queen or even the Goblin Queen. I'm talking more about the fact that no one really seems to know just how to spell her name. I constantly run into this on the internet, and while it might not seem like a power to some, in the DC universe and other different magically based worlds, it would likely be considered an asset. It would be considered a power because it would protect you. Madelyne's name is spelled Madelyne with Pryor as Pryor. The fact that so many struggle to spell it or even know it would be seen as an asset in many other magical worlds where there is considered to be power in knowing and having someone's name. Like over at DC Comics, this is why some magic users have actually used alternative names. That way they can keep their real ones a secret, so that way demons can't like get their names and like control them or manipulate them. Constantine initially even tried to do this with Hellblazer, but he became too well known and famous and decided to give up his codename as a kind of take that statement to the magic community as a whole. So that's where that name comes from. Number 3. Leave you speechless. As I said earlier, Madelyne Pryor isn't just a powerful psychic, she was also crafted from a piece of the Phoenix Force by Mr. Sinister, putting her on the same level, if not above, potentially, someone like Jean Grey. Still, even then, I was pretty shocked when she reappeared in Hellions and used her powers to make Havoc's mouth literally disappear. This could be perceived as an illusion, an illusory power, but the way it was gruesomely portrayed makes me think it was more of like Maddie manipulating and rewriting reality to literally erase Havoc's mouth from his face, which she either did through, you know, maybe Phoenix connections or just through magic. A la Scarlet Witch with Black Bolt in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Pretty spooky stuff. Number 2. Rules over Limbo. Recently, in the New Mutants comic, Madelyne Pryor once more became the Goblin Queen. But this time, more literally the Goblin Queen. She actually took over ruling Limbo from Magic, and what's even more wild is she didn't seek to conquer Limbo. She didn't take it by force. Instead, Magic decided to give over rulership to Madelyne. Magic had her own reasons, largely to get some distance from something that was literally attached to and represented her childhood trauma, while Madelyne obviously had much to gain from the change in power, chiefly a whole kingdom. However, unlike last time when Madelyne wanted to use the power of Limbo for ill, she was revealed to have actually genuinely turned over a new leaf, it seemed, wanting to keep the demons of Limbo in check. At least, that's how it seemed initially. Her designs ended up being somewhat reimagined, shall we say, for the Dark Web event, as she was more depicted as a villain there who used the Limbo's resources and populace to once more invade New York City. But we'll get to that in a second. I mean, that all got resolved now. It's kind of a weird thing though, where they were like, she's good. Just kidding, she's evil again. Just kidding, she's good again. You're like, what's happening here? What are we doing with this character? Number 1. Master Diplomat? Madelyne Pryor is perhaps working towards becoming a master diplomat and leader. At the end of the Dark Web event, with Maddie once more being reformed and even becoming an ally of the X-Men during the event, fighting alongside them and even getting to call on them to assemble, so nice, she decides to open up her own embassy for Limbo, stationing it in New York City. Maddie does this to bring the darkness into the light, believing the spirits of Limbo have been hidden away for far too long, seeing them as representing her own darkness and basically saying like, well, you try to like hide our darkness and suppress it and like put it away, but you know what, in order to heal we need to bring it out into the light. She intends to make sure that the beings of Limbo are no longer rejected and in fact are seen and accepted by the world above and in this case now around them. which I kind of love, honestly. I think that's beautiful.
In its 10, resistance to telepathy. Psychics in the Marvel Universe are undeniably real, with a significant number of mutants possessing psychic abilities, including members of the X-Men. Professor X, the X-Men founder, is a powerful psychic, and Jean Grey initially displayed telekinesis before unlocking her own psychic powers. Rachel Grey, Jean Grey's daughter from an alternate universe, is also a psychic and frequently joins the X-Men, but despite the prevalence of psychics, some heroes in the universe receive training to defend themselves against psychic attacks and probing, such as Wolverine, who was given psionic shields by Charles Xavier to enhance his resistance. While these defenses are not foolproof, they offer valuable protection, especially when there are so many damn psychics. Notably, even some villains have safeguards against psychics, like Magneto and Juggernaut, who has that helmet that prevents Professor X from accessing their thoughts. But in a bizarre turn of events, Red Skull consumed Professor X's brain, gaining psychic abilities himself. So there you go, Wolverine, you'll be able to fight against Red Skull a little bit more, I guess. Is that really a common problem for you? I don't think so. In at 9, lie detection. Logan, or Wolverine, whatever you want to call him, possesses a heightened sense of smell and hearing that surpasses that of an average human. His sense of smell is incredibly potent, which allows him to detect scents from a considerable distance, making it useful for tracking down enemies, but this acute sense of smell enables him to actually pick up on certain emotions as well, such as fear, which is emanating from individuals, pheromones, all that jazz. Okay? His hearing is also quite exceptional, allowing him to perceive sounds that are far away and even detect softer noises that are typically beyond the range of normal perception. So, combining these powers, Wolverine actually becomes basically a human lie detector. By focusing on a specific person, he can determine if they are telling the truth or not by relying on his sense of smell, detecting changes in their scent and sweating patterns if they lie, while using his hearing to actually concentrate on their heartbeat and detect any shifts in their tone of voice, which is pretty dope, and I wish I had that in my last relationship. In at 8, Berserker Rage. Here I am just dumping my trauma. Wolverine possesses a dangerous state known as Berserker Rage, which is triggered by an overwhelming anger that drives him to lash out uncontrollably. In this frenzied state, he becomes an unstoppable killing machine, slashing through enemies without hesitation. However, the downside is that Wolverine loses all sense of control and may even harm his allies, unable to recognize them in the midst of his rage, which I certainly relate to. This internal struggle has plagued Logan since childhood and often leads him to distance himself from others, fearing what he might do, but despite the risks, there are moments when the Berserker Rage proves necessary, particularly in his relentless battles against Sabretooth. The movie franchise also showcases this aspect of Wolverine, with a memorable scene in X2, the best X-Men movie, where he unleashes this fury, slashing through adversaries within the confines of the X-Mansion. But again, you all remember that scene, it's the best X-Men movie. Please flash sarcasm on the screen because they won't know I'm joking. In its 7, Night Vision. The combination of Wolverine's claws and super healing already gives him a formidable set of powers. Okay, the healing factor alone ensures that any wound is swiftly healed, including those caused by his claws, making him truly lethal. And alongside these regenerative capabilities that literally brought him back from a drop of blood, Logan possesses heightened senses like the super hearing, the smelling, and the ability to see in the dark. Although this power is often overlooked by some comic writers, it provides him with a distinct advantage in various situations. Wolverine has had an array of powers that has changed and evolved over the years, making him increasingly more powerful, but what initially began as a mutant with enhanced durability and claws developed into a character that is basically a, dare I say, Wolverine. Haha, get it? Yeah. He's constantly aware of his surroundings no matter what environment he's in because of this night vision, and his tendency to eliminate enemies before they actually pose like a genuine threat makes him exceedingly more formidable than normal. And this explains how he's able to do that, because you know, he can see in the dark. And at 6, Swordsman. In the 1990s comic storyline Fatal Attraction, Magneto forcibly removes the adamantium from Wolverine's body, leaving him without his signature claws. In this adamantiumless period, Wolverine carried a katana given to him by the Yoshida clan for added protection. One notable use of this katana was when he ended up beheading Bloodscream. Yeah, Oh boy. Later on, Wolverine acquired the Muramasa Blade, a sword with mythical properties capable of neutralizing a mutant's healing abilities, which is the unique blade that became his weapon of choice in certain situations, allowing him to confront and defeat formidable adversaries such as Omega Red and Sabretooth. And as it was the only weapon capable of truly ending Wolverine, therefore also able to end Omega Red and Sabretooth. But yeah, he's skilled with a sword, which you wouldn't really expect because, you know, he has the claws, but also makes sense because the claws are just basically tiny swords. Halfway through into number 5, Wisdom. Logan's journey as a superhero spans across significant historical events. Okay, he served in both World War I and World War II. He even fought alongside Captain America, and following these wars he found himself in Japan where he formed a family only to tragically lose them, and these devastating losses combined with centuries of heartbreak contribute to Logan's bitter and cynical demeanor. But after going through the adamantium bonding process, he befriended Alpha Fight, a Canadian superhero team, and became one of Canada's earliest superheroes. His initial task involved intervening in a conflict between Hulk and a Wendigo. However, his path took a turn when he was sent to eliminate Charles Xavier, but ended up being influenced by Xavier's telepathic abilities, leading him to join the X-Men. But still, okay, Wolverine's wealth of experiences and wisdom greatly influenced the X-Men's journey, and I mean, with an extended lifespan comes years to learn and become wiser, which he clearly has, and then it only continues on. So yeah, dude, damn, well done. Good for you. In at 4, Feral Form. The 90s marked a peculiar era in comic books characterized by excessive violence, extreme physical attributes, and objectification. But it was a time when unconventional ideas emerged, yielding both remarkable stories like Age of Apocalypse and disappointing ones like the Clone Saga. But surprisingly, Wolverine spent a significant portion of this decade without his adamantium skeleton. Despite losing the metal coating, he did retain his bone claws and healing factor, maintaining, like, you know, the classic Wolverine sort of aspect. However, the supervillain Genesis sought to actually restore Wolverine's adamantium, driven by a desire to serve the powerful Apocalypse. In a failed attempt though, Logan's body rejected the procedure and triggered a dormant mutation. Stripped of adamantium, Wolverine underwent a primal transformation, adopting an animalistic mentality while his nails grew into natural claws. It showcased the profound impact that the absence of adamantium had on Wolverine's body, and he just kind of became a beast, ironically enough. So yeah, he kind of needs the adamantium nowadays, otherwise it kind of goes back. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Super Dad. On Earth 982, Rena was the new girl at high school, where some of the more popular girls tried to make her life miserable, stating that she was the daughter of an immigrant and an unemployed biker and all that. But when her dad, Logan, picked her up from school on his bike, everyone's opinion changed, especially when they learned that her mother, Elektra, was a wealthy martial arts expert. Yeah, it's crazy what fear can do. However, life at high school wasn't just about dealing with, like, the crowd and, you know, normal high school things, because, you know, it's a comic book high school. So, as Wild Thing, Rena had to save a classmate from a high-speed kidnapper, defeat a computerized assassin, stop a demonic invader, and even fight one of her teachers when he was turned into a Prime Sentinel. But that's just high school. But the fact that he can just pull up to her school and then everyone stops making fun of his kid, that's a superpower, okay? And I wish my dad had that superpower. Although I probably wouldn't be as funny as I think I am if that had been the case. But ultimately, in number 2, time travel. When translating comic book superheroes to the big screen, screenwriters have to take creative liberties to adapt the material effectively, okay? What happens in comics can't necessarily work on screen. For example, Thanos' infatuation with Lady Death, which was a significant aspect of his character in the comics, was omitted for Infinity War and Endgame, allowing for a more focused portrayal of him. Similarly, the X-Men's colorful costumes were deemed impractical for the early films, leading to more black latex that ironically have aged poorly compared to their comic counterparts. But when the classic Days of Future Past storyline was adapted in the movie of the same name, significant alterations were made. In the comics, Kitty Pryde was the central character sent to the past to save the future, but in the movie, Wolverine took on that role. The film introduced the concept of Kitty Pryde's ability to send someone's consciousness back in time, with the caveat that it damages the mind. Due to his regenerative healing factor though, Wolverine became the only valid candidate candidate to actually go through time that far back and ensure everyone's survival. And then finally, in at number 1, the Phoenix Force. I mean, like, okay, this is kind of a cop-out, but like, it still happened, okay? It was originally believed that the Phoenix Force was just simply an alternate personality of Jean Grey, or well, I guess the Phoenix was, just emerging when she acquired immense power. However, after Jean's tragic demise in the Dark Phoenix saga, it was retconned that the Phoenix was in fact a cosmic entity, and the Phoenix Force had a knack for possessing individuals, with Jean Grey being its favored host. Over the years though, it has possessed numerous mutants. Rachel Grey, Jean's daughter from an alternate future, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Magic, and Namor were all possessed by the Phoenix Force at some point, and simultaneously, in fact, forming the group known as the Phoenix Five, because, you know, you couldn't have one more, otherwise they would be competing with the Sinister Six, and you couldn't have one less, otherwise it would be like the Fantastic Four. You know, there's a lot of numbers that you gotta work with. But yeah, Wolverine has also had it, okay? So there you go. He's had that, and he has all those powers, or at least he has.